coverage is getting better each and every week. I think the players are figuring it out.
I think there's a huge edge in this thing for good putters and good short game wizards.
Dr. Shapinski. What's it doing again? Yes!
Oh, it is time for the TGL Show. I am your host, PGA professional Keith Stewart. And you know what? Those kids down in South Beach, they love the lights of the Sofi Center, and they love our resident there, the man to my left, the TGL expert, Mr. Joe Idoni. It's been a week, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great, Keith. It has been a week indeed. Got to meet up with you in Orlando for the PGA show. I'm sure we'll touch on that a little bit. You made it safely back to New Jersey, which I'm glad to see. And I'm fired up to get back in the SoFi Center this Monday night. A little shift in the schedule, 7 p.m., match 6. I mean, gosh, Keith, we're getting almost a third of the way through the season, right?
Well, we are a third of the way through the season. And, you know, if you're new to the TGL show, we're going to talk a little bit about our takeaways from last week's match. Both Joe and I, we were in the SoFi Center to see LA take down Jupiter Lynx. We're going to talk and preview, you know, Monday night's match between Boston and the Bay. And maybe we'll give you a couple of best bets along the way. But you touched upon it there. Before we get into all this TGL talk, your first ever experience in Orlando for the annual occurrence, which is better known as the PGA show. I know you've probably seen it on the Golf Channel and everything, but could anything do it justice when you first walked in those doors and saw the convention center?
You know, we've asked this question to a couple guys this season, Michael Thorbjornsen, Akshay Bhatia, Chris Goddard, guys who stepped into the SoFi Center for the first time. They described it as sensory overload. That was me walking into the Orlando Orange County Convention Center, Keith. Thankfully, you were there to kind of walk me through, but everything is so tech-driven now in golf, and I think one of the big factors that has kind of spurred that along in this movement towards simulator space and launch monitors and data galore is what's happening in TGL.
There's no doubt about that, and I kind of quickly took a couple steps ahead of you. We walked through that door because I wanted to see the look on your face when you're like eyes wide open when you walked in there, because there's just such a myriad of stuff. Everything from Titleist on one end to Adidas on the other, and everything in between, launch monitors, simulators. I mean, it just goes on and on. It was so great to spend some time with you there in Orlando, but you know what? The TGL show, it rolls on, and we like to do this quickly. So the first thing I wanted to touch on this week, before we even get to takeaways from last week, are you starting to see any trends with these guys that are playing golf? Because a lot of people that watch this show, they also want to hear our leans when it comes to what's happening on the PGA Tour. And we're in week 2 over there, and we've already had a lot of action. So are you starting to see any crossover between the talent of TGL and what's happening? Like, do you think that there's any kind of trends that we can pick up on? If somebody's playing well at TGL, do you think they're going to play well out on the PGA Tour? What are you seeing on both sides of the coin?
There's certainly a way to connect the dots there. Obviously, Chris Goddard winning the Sony as round 3 was just completed at the Amex. Wyndham Clark up there at the top of the leaderboard. Look, you know as well as I do, Keith, reps are important, right? Reps under pressure, in the lights, in front of fans, in a team-heavy competition is different than practicing at home in a hit and giggle with your buddies. So the fact that a lot of these players have seen several months, if not weeks, off competitive golf, I think just getting in there, getting in the arena, putting yourself in that environment with that type of pressure has to help them to a certain degree. Now, obviously, we're talking 2 very different forms of golf, but reps are reps. And I don't think there's any coincidence that a lot of these guys are near the top of the leaderboard early on in the season.
I mean, I think you're right. And we've heard the guys say it in the press room. They said it's nice to get the juices flowing. Max Homa said it last week. He was making his PGA Tour start this week. Akshay, the same thing. And, you know, if there's one thing that maybe I have picked up on that's a crossover between both sides is that sometimes we try to make a big deal about the travel. Doesn't seem to be bothering these guys. If they're playing well, they're tending to play well out there on tour, even going from Hawaii to Palm Beach and Palm Beach out to Palm Desert. I mean, these guys are going cross country like you wouldn't believe, and they're still playing well. And it goes back to last week. We want to talk about match 5 between Jupiter Lynx and the Los Angeles Golf Club. What were your big takeaways there? I mean, for me, Jupiter Lynx has got to do something with what's going on there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with one third, your team is only three players. When a third of that team is
Yeah.
relatively uncompetitive and unable to compete at the same level as the rest of the teams in the league, it puts you at a severe disadvantage, and that's what they're going through right now. Besides, obviously, the best shot we've ever seen in TGL when Justin Rose made albatross. I don't know if we'll
Oh,
ever see that again inside the SoFi Center. Me and you were upstairs. We heard the roar. We saw the celebration. It was electric in there as that happened. Like I mentioned, maybe a once in a lifetime moment inside there. But yeah, Jupiter continues to be outmatched, and they're the dwelling, the bottom floor of the league right now, and they have options. That's what's frustrating. They need to make an adjustment. There are players out there, and you and I both know, that are dying to get in there and hit a couple shots in the biggest sim in the world. Let's let somebody else get a chance. Let's get this team competitive, so that way we have these six core teams all going head to head and evenly matched, versus one another.
I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about this a little bit more when we get to your weekly power rankings, but LAGC now leading the TGL in fairway accuracy, leading in greens and regulation percentage. These guys are accurate. They're getting the job done, and they're not using the guy who's like a top 3 player in the world, and Tommy Fleetwood. He hasn't even played yet. And I know you were commenting on that last week. You're like, these guys are making albatrosses, and we don't even have Fleetwood in the lineup yet. He's still over there in Dubai. Big drop off in the accuracy from Jupiter Links. They hit 40% of their fairways, 60% of their greens. They couldn't scramble. And the big thing is that, I mean, you could talk about the lack of length or anything else, the hammer issues, but they missed 3 big putts last Tuesday night in the SoFi Center from inside 10 feet. And you just cannot do that on the green. I mean, most of those putts inside 10 feet don't have a lot of movement to them unless you're coming off one of those shelves, which none of those were the case. Really a tough situation. And, it was interesting. We've been inside the SoFi Center, and you and I have got a sense of this, of like how official things are all the time. And I know you pointed this out to me, and you're so sharp all the time, not just with your picks, because you got your prop bet correct last week. You got LAGC. I mean, that wasn't hard to pick, but you had a really, really nice sharp prop bet before the match went off last week. But one of the things I thought was interesting was that during the match, when one of the spotter lights in the green zone went out, and you're like, oh, here comes Scott Armstrong out. He's the head official. And, I mean, everyone's name, everything that's going on, and then all of a sudden we run into those guys at the PGA merchandise show. And we had a half an hour conversation with those guys. And what was your takeaway in talking to the head of competitions there, Scott? Because he made a quote to start it off. And that's what I'm going to lead you in with. He said, this is the most accurate launch monitor system in the world.
Yeah. So what's playing in my head is that little bit from our intro music where we're like, the players are getting better, the coverage is getting better, the sim is getting better. It's advancing. Oh, yeah. Like you mentioned, this is the best golf simulator in the entire world. And after our talk with them, certainly reinforced that in my brain. It's certainly been doubled down upon with the players this year. Look, when they hit a bad shot, it's a bad shot. Ludwig missed 2 fairways. He talked about it in the post-round presser. It put 2 in the penalty area. He said he hit horrible drives there. Like, it's not misreading anything. And one of the crazy things, Keith, I don't know that anybody knows with the amount of tech that goes into this, down to the most minute of details, is every single golf ball that is used in TGL is completely examined down to the dimple, so that they understand every single bit of speed, every single bit of curvature, everything there is to know that golf ball would normally be doing in the air. Those monitors are picking up to a near perfect degree. So when you see a shot in TGL, it's as realistic as it gets. The gameplay is 100% the real deal. Did you walk away with kind of the same idea in your head?
I mean, the conversation that you and Scott were having was so deep, and it was so interesting. And really, from my perspective, and I know your perspective as well, but, as kind of the voice of Read the Line at times to times, for over 4 years from now, it's like you just want TGL to be this thing that kind of helps launch golf betting. And they validated all of my concerns in that conversation about how hard they're working to make this thing accurate. And a lot of people want to be critical of that all the time, but they have no idea what's going on. We now have a glimpse into the crystal ball of what they're doing. And I was like so impressed by all of that. And, it might sound like hyperbole here for a moment, but like, let me tell you something, folks. There are officials all over this place watching what's going on, watching the tech. There are so many redundancies when it comes to the launch monitor system. I walked away really impressed. I was like even more engaged by the whole thing because I'm a golf geek. I have been for a really long time, self-confessed. And I tell you what, like, if you love that sort of stuff, if you love launch monitors and all of the top tracer and everything involved with TGL, I tell you what, these people have put their heart and soul into this thing, just like you put your heart and soul into the power rankings. Hit me. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong. Looks like somebody made a little jump last week in the power rankings. Break it down for me.
LAGC up to number 2. I was so impressed with them, Keith. And just I feel like the depth of their roster, and we talked about it. You mentioned it earlier in the show. They're missing their best player right now. But they played fantastic. I think they had a much better strategy in terms of the hammer. And one of the things that we picked up on in the post-round presser that other people's may not, they practice and they prepare.
Oh, yeah.
And if you care, then you prepare, Keith. And you know that as well as anyone. And the amount of work that LAGC puts in before the match starts in terms of understanding likely pin locations, reading the green, setting up their roster construction correctly so that their players fit the holes that are most ideal for them to have success. It's one of the things that the strategy component beyond the hammer that a lot of teams I feel like ignore, and LA gets it. So they're well prepared. You don't ever hear them talking about misreading a putt like you hear from other teams because they know what the putt's going to do. They are ready. They work really well as a team together with Rose, Morikawa, Thigala. You throw in Tommy Fleetwood, who's a top 3 player in the world, and literally a cyborg robot for simulator golf because he's so deadly accurate down to the very number. They're just really well set up. I moved them up to number 2. I can't unseat Atlanta yet, but I think that LA, if you're looking long-term into value for winning the league, there are books out there still with 4-1 on LA. They are really well positioned right now to make a deep run at this thing. And I think they give I think they give Atlanta a run for the money in the end.
That 4-1 bet has a lot of value to it right now. I mean, I think right now, after the first 5 weeks of this, this season 2, and we're a third of the way through the season, and you start to look at next week already, I like to look ahead from time to time, and it's Atlanta and Jupiter. So, Atlanta's going to 3-0. I mean, these two teams are on a crash course collision for, the SoFi finals right now between LA and Atlanta. But I have another question for you about the rankings.
Yeah.
When you start to talk about the Bay and you start to talk about Boston, if the Bay wins on Monday night, both these teams are 1-1. Does that you've been very high on Boston Common this year. I know they just got supplanted by LA, but they're still number 3. And I know you feel like there's a big distance between 3 and 4 and then 5 and 6, of course. But if the Bay is 1-1 and Boston's 1-1, what are we looking for next week here?
It'll be interesting, and I may have to adjust accordingly. Right now, obviously, we'll talk about it in a few minutes, but Boston's a pretty decent favorite in the match coming up this week. I thought that the implementation of having a hammer analytics guy that we talked about a few episodes ago with Teddy Metropolis, basically breaking down every scenario that you could imagine on whether to hit or whether to stand when the hammer is thrown, is a huge advantageous position for them. And the Bay used it really poorly. We talked to both of them. Shane and Wyndham seem to be on different pages with the hammer. Yes, they threw it 3 times, but they were really poorly timed decisions that they made. And they also several penalty shots, several in the water. They only hit 40% of fairways in that first match, missed nearly half the greens in regulation, and they were able to have better marks than that in season 1. And don't forget, the season 2 green is nearly 1,500 square feet bigger. They should be hitting more greens in regulation. In match 1, they hit less. It was their worst performance inside the SoFi Center in 2 full years. If they're able to turn it around in this next match, that of course can change things. But until I see it, they're going to sit there in that 5 hole.
All right. Hey, pump the brakes for a second. It already sounds to me like you're giving us a preview. So hit the preview graphics. Let's roll right into it.
That is Tiger at its best.
All right, before you get too excited there, Mr. Idoni, I'm going to go through the lineup cards real quick. We've got the Bay leading us off. Sugar Shane Lowry, the Irish Bear, he's up first. Min-Woo Lee jumping in there for the kid Ludwig, and then closing with Wyndham Clark. You know, the last time these two teams met, 5-4 in season 1. Wyndham closed out Boston Common on that last hole, the 15th hole. Good stuff. I believe, if I remember correctly, that was the President's Day triple header. That was the nightcap match, right? Do I remember that correctly?
Sounds correct, yeah.
Right after Ludwig's Genesis win. And then on the Boston Common side, you're going right with Rory into Michael Thorbjornsen, and then closing with the Captain America, the Ryder Cup captain, Mr. Keegan Bradley. FanDuel odds, -138 for Boston Common. Pretty heavy favorite there. +110 for the Bay. I think that's mainly coming out of one team being 1-0 and the other being 0-1. I'm not sure if I feel that it's that far apart. When you look at these lineup cards, where does your mind go? What's your first impression?
A lot of different directions. I'll start with, will we get an encore from Thor? The best putting performance in the history of the league. This guy made 4 10-foot plus putts, coupled with the fact that, he hit every fairway and averaged a measly 331 off the tee in his first match. He's back. Hideki and Adam Scott may never play another match if he keeps playing this well, but he's awesome. So excited to see him back in the lineup for Boston. The big storyline here, of course, is going to be Rory versus Shane. Great friends, Zurich champs, Ryder Cup partners. They're going to play the 2 single holes together. But here's what I'll say, Keith. Highly questionable lineup construction here from the Bay, putting Shane Lowry into this spot. What's more important, having a fun narrative, a juicy narrative where these two friends meet up, or trying to win the match? To me, it's trying to win the match, and that's not putting Shane Lowry against Rory McIlroy on 2 par 5s, totaling 1,100 yards. They get the 2 longest par 4s of the night that they stick Lowry up against Rory in. What are we doing here? Like, why would you put him in that spot when you have Min-Woo Lee, when you have Wyndham Clark, guys capable? Min-Woo Lee led the entire TGL in ball speed and driving distance last year. Why wouldn't you put him on 2 of the par 5s? Why wouldn't you put him on the longer par 4s? Instead, we're going to chase this fun little narrative, and maybe we get some cool mic'd up comments and a little needling between Shane and Rory. But what are we doing here? The idea is to win the match, and this is really poor construction on part of the Bay, and it, that kind of stuff irks me a little bit.
Hey, the Bay's coordinator, Josh Seipel, he's got a lot to answer to. I mean, because if I'm the captain now, I'm telling you right now, there's no way. You're going to put Min-Woo Lee on stinger when you've got a guy like Shane Lowry who can play in the heavy wind and grew up over there in Ireland that could flight the ball beautifully. And then I had the numbers queued up for you, Joe. 464, 627. Like crazy. 5. And then we're going to go Lowry versus Rory. And Rory was just like letting the shaft out on that new TaylorMade driver in the SoFi Center in match 2 against LA. He was just letting it out. He leads them in every category in driver by enough, right? That he has totally set the tone. I don't understand that decision at all. And then not to mention the fact that Shane's coming from Dubai. I know Rory is too, but if Rory loses 5% of his driver, he's still hitting at 330. And Shane is not. I don't understand the psychology there. I'm totally with you. I love the fact that Thor was amazing with the putter last time when he was in there. He's been really strong this week out of the Amex with the putter. It's about the only thing that's been working for him out there, but he's been strong with the putter out there. Min-Woo Lee putter hasn't been working out there at Amex. He started out hot. I mean, there's a lot of things going on there. Wyndham Clark, super hot out there, was one of the possible MVP choices until he got injured last year for season 1 of TGL. A lot of storylines here. Last year, it was won on the last hole. Man, some of these matchups, head-to-heads, triples, some of these tee shots, anything stick out in your mind when we're just talking about the lineup cards past what you've said already?
Yeah, look, like I mentioned, they put themselves in a bad spot, not conducive to success. Shane Lowry in his last 10 single holes in TGL, Keith, 1 win,
Oh,
3 ties, 6 losses. You're going to throw him up there against Rory. You're going to put yourself in a hole to start singles. You
where's
better have some hammers saved for the back end of that. And if they use it improperly, like they did in that first match, they're going to be 0-2, and they're going to have to dig themselves out of a hole just to make the playoffs. So I as soon as I saw it, it jumped right off the page to me. We can get into some specific holes and kind of how that plays out, but just was not a fan of how the Bay set up their roster this week.
I mean, Shane's going to be looking for Kisner, of all people, right? So let's talk about this course for this matchup. Longest course we've seen yet for season 2, 6,174 yards. This thing's going to be a beast this week. You know, we're talking about the par 4s, averaging close to 440, and the shortest one's 398 yards. Now, they've always been giving us a drivable hole, an opportunity on the par 4s. It seems like the introduction of another Gil Hanse hole for the second week in a row. We can get to that in a second, but just let me wrap the course for a second. That new par 4 could be drivable, and it's like 416. You're going to have to break that down for me. And then the par 5s are averaging 610 yards. Now, last year, the Bay was long and strong off the tee, but already Boston has set the tone. They are the longest. They're the second straightest. I mean, they must have an advantage off the tee. Fairway percentage here across these 15 holes, it's going to average about 68%. Greens in regulation, 64%. The guys are going to struggle a little bit here. How are you breaking down the golf course with these two teams going head-to-head on Monday night?
It's interesting. We get the 2 team holes back. So through 5 matches so far, no team has actually lost their home team hole. Boston on the 4th hole there with Starrowed. Obviously, if Boston's going to set up a team hole, they have Rory McIlroy hitting the tee shot on. What are they going to set it up as long as possible? It's going to play about 630 yards. Him and Shane Lowry are going to hit the tee shots. It's nice and reasonably wide open for Rory to go ahead and send that new tailor-made driver as far as he wants. And then they're going to have an opportunity to go for that green in 2. So a chance to pick up an early point there. You mentioned 6 holes that debuted in season 2 are on the card this week, and we get a brand new one as Gil's back at it again, Keith. I'll bring it up here. He debut Cut the Sails. So cut this basically, to break it down for you, 426 yards this thing is going to play on this week.
426. Okay.
Yeah, 426. But it essentially begs the question, can you carry it 305 yards? Because if you can, there's basically a slope akin to the Alpine hole that is going to generate a speed slot that will take this ball either on or around the green. So you carry it right over that trap here. Go ahead and send it, and it'll funnel the ball right down there. It's a 400-plus yard hole, Keith, and we could see eagle putts. The problem, this is the kind of the issue that I have. I love the holes like Stinger. I actually love Pick Your Plunder. I think it gives a great option of a good, better, best fairway option that, you know, pairs risk with reward, right? If you want to have reward, there has to be risk. I don't really see the risk in this hole, just like I don't really see the risk in Cenote. It's just send it up there on the Cape. This is just send it over that bunker. And I guess you could blow one way right and end up in the water there. But for the most part, there's no risk. You're not going to lay this thing up. So you're just going to try to take driver as far as you can, funnel it into that speed slope, and you're going to be chipping or putting with your second shot. What do you think of this new design?
The new design, I'm 100% in lockstep with you, right?
Okay.
We need to be shaping shots with these guys. I need golden tee. I need the ball to bend. I need it to be flighted. I need trajectory control. I need spin control. I need all of the above. I love last hole, and you know we both love Stinger. It's your favorite hole, so I'll have to take last hole as mine. But it was really fun last week, even in the press room. Both those guys, well, Sahith commented on the fact that as soon as he hit it, he's like, man, I thought I hit the bridge for a second. Like, that's what we want. We want those guys to be as pensive about the opportunity of watching that shot tracer as all the fans are inside the SoFi Center going nuts. Now, you love it. You know I love to talk about the experience factor when it comes to these teams. Season 2, this collection of 15 holes, the Bays played 10 of them in their one match. Boston Common Golf has played just 7 of these holes. Now, if you go back to season 1, these guys, they played 7 of the 15 holes in season one in their first match, which was very, very close, 5-4 in favor of the Bay. But even more important, they repeated from their match last year 7 of the 9 holes that aren't new. We've got 6 brand new ones, and they hit you early with them 4, 5, and 6 right in a row. And then you've got 9, 11, and 12. And 11 and 12, I know you're going to have your eye on because it's back-to-back the types of holes that you and I love. We have Stinger at 11. We have last hole at 12. 2 tee shots in a row that have to be hit very, very precisely.
Yeah, I'll break down Stinger if you want to take last hole. So that hole is going to be played between Minwoo Lee and Michael Thor Bjornsson. Minwoo can hit it low, Keith. I mean, he averages last year on the PGA Tour about 8 degrees in terms of launch.
Hang on.
Yeah.
Thor 17 feet low last time with the 3-iron.
Here's the thing, though. Here's where I'll push back on you. Thor, it's uncomfortable for him to hit it low. Now, he had a 4-iron. He pulled it off. It was a great shot. They made birdie. They won that hole. Who's more comfortable hitting it low regularly? That's Minwoo Lee. Thor hits 75% of his shots on the PGA Tour out of a very high window compared to PGA Tour average. He averages 12 degrees launch. Minwoo Lee averages 8 degrees. He hits 75% of them low. So we haven't seen Minwoo in here yet. Now, Michael Thor Bjornsson, is he going to hit that 3-iron again that rolled out 285? Quite possibly. I think Minwoo Lee has that shot as well. And it just begs the question of what I always look for on this hole. Who's comfortable hitting that shot? Now, Michael Thor Bjornsson has pulled it off, so he's got a little repetition under his belt where that is key in this hole. But I think Minwoo Lee has all the capability to hit a various clubs and keep it low and keep it under that rock and kind of attack. And we know how talented he is when he gets around the green, led all of TGL in chip-ins last year, earned himself a nice little moniker from Matt Barry as Dr. Chipinski. We'll see if that comes into play this week. What do you think about the last hole, though, and those two guys hitting those balls?
Wyndham Clark, Keegan Bradley playing the last hole. Iron play wise, Keegan certainly has the advantage on this 200+ yard par 3. We've learned last week that once it goes up there through the bridge uprights, through that very vertical rectangle, there needs to be a little bit of a fade on the ball, a little left to right for both these right-handed players. I think that certainly favors Wyndham, although Wyndham's definitely the weaker iron player between those two guys.
Agreed.
It's going to be interesting because both of them are playing it for the first time. And if I had to give an edge to either one, I would give it to Keegan just because he's a better ball striker and he's a better chipper, because chances are that they're both the first time through, they're going to favor the middle and try to hit it straight, which means they're going to end up in that left bunker or in the left fringe or even left of the left bunker where Kiz was, because he drew it just a little bit. I think that hole ultimately ends in a tie with 2 threes. But if I had to lean one way or the other, I'm going to lead towards Boston on that hole.
Okay.
I mean, that's the way I feel. Now, speaking of leans, right, let's wrap this up and get out of here. Let's start talking about who we're going to go with. We know that the Boston Common Golf, they're favored. Mine was minus 138 on the FanDuel odds board, plus 110. That number is going to shift a bunch because it seems like to me, after 5 matches in season 2, whoever is the favorite gets chopped because everybody loves plus numbers in golf. So they just start hammering the underdog. And I think that number is going to come down. So I would be waiting if you're a Boston guy. If you're a Bay guy, I would be hitting that thing the moment that you pop this show up. The moment that you pop onto FanDuel. If you're on there right now, and just hit pause and go over there and hit this thing, because I think the numbers are going to reverse. And I'm sure you have a couple of keys on who you think's going to win the match based upon our preview and what's been going on in season 2. Break it down for me. Which way are you leaning overall in this match 6?
It's interesting because, like you mentioned there, you kind of nailed it, where people seem to be loving to go to the counter and bet the underdog in these TGL matches. That's where the line shift has been happening as we get closer to match time from when we released this show. However, 4 of the 5 matchups have been won by the favorite and won by pretty large margins. We haven't had that super tight match yet, with the exception of Boston, kind of LA in the first one. I'm leaning toward Boston in this match, Keith. I think that they have the more talented team. I love the strategy component when they introduced this year with having a guy kind of manage that hammer for them and take that decision process off the player's shoulders. Just frees them up. Think about the shots they got to hit. Play the golf holes. I'll figure out the hammer, because there seemed to be plenty of indecision on the side of the Bay and that in match number 1. I think Boston, like I mentioned, the lineup construction was huge for me. They set themselves up for success. I think the Bay set themselves up for failure with the way that they rolled out this lineup. I'm going Boston. I'll probably look to attack them in the singles and in the triples market as well. We'll try to put out a prop play, live from the turf there Monday night, because I'll be back in the SoFi Center once again, as always. Where are you leaning in this match? Are you on the same page with me?
You know I love to write, and you know I love my alliterations. Keith's keys for this. I got 4 quick ones. One,
Okay.
driver, length, 6,100 yards and change. This is a long golf course. I think Boston Common is a better driving team. I think they have an edge there. Second thing, we talked about the fact that there's going to be a lot of targets missed. This particular collection of 15 holes has caused these guys some strife, and one of them they don't even know yet, and one of them many of these holes these guys haven't even seen. There's going to be some scrambling involved. The Bay is a better scrambling team. We know that. Third thing, when it comes down to putting, Boston Common, the team's hot from 10 to 30 feet with the putter, and that's where these matches are won. That's where Billy Horschel has made his Hall of Fame bid, and that's where everyone else. And yes, you have to make your 1 to 10 footers, but that 10 to 30 foot range, that's why New York went on that run last year, deep into the playoffs, all the way to the SoFi Finals. Definitely, I'm giving the edge to Boston. They made 87 feet of putts in their first match 2 against LAGC. And then the last thing is the hammer. And right now, Boston played it right in their match, and the Bay did not. I got to give the edge to Boston. Boston with the driver, Boston with the putter, Boston with the hammer. I'm leaning towards Boston right now. I'm going to bet Boston, but I'm going to wait because I know that number is going to shrink, and it's going to get better the closer and closer we get to match 6.
Yeah, if you get 1 1/4 minus 125, take it to the counter on the Boston Common. We'll meet you there. We'll meet you back here, of course, next week as we start to enter doubleheader season for TGL coming up soon as we get to the second half of the year.
I mean, I can't wait till we've got to squeeze 2 matches, maybe 3 matches, maybe 4 matches into one of these shows. I mean, forget the takeaways. We are going to be going hot and heavy from the jump. Right? You are going to be on the turntables down there as our resident TGL expert. Of course, before we get out of here, as your host, I've got to thank everyone that's involved, certainly our producers, Golf Space Collective, all of our friends down there at TGL, Scott Armstrong for taking the time to spend with us this week and explain everything about the world's most accurate launch monitor. I've got to thank, of course, my co-host, Joe Idoni, and certainly all of you for watching. You know, folks, if you get busy, you don't have to watch this on YouTube. You can listen to us on iTunes, on Spotify. You can consume this in any way. And you know what? Tell a friend. If you love TGL and you love watching TGL or talking about TGL to other people, tell some folks that we're here doing this. We care as much as you do, and we care that you're here. Next week, it's another Monday match. We're getting Atlanta Drive, I mentioned it earlier, versus Jupiter Links. There'll be tons to talk about there. There'll be tons to talk about to react from this. That'll be February 2nd. We'll already be in February, Joe. What do you have to say with the season 1/3 over?
Fired up. This is a big week this week for both of these teams. So if Boston can go to 2-0, it's huge. If the Bay starts 2-0, big hole to dig out of. Pleasure doing the show with you as always. Make sure out there, like, comment, subscribe, get on board with the Read the Line YouTube channel. My show will be drifting over and migrating over to that network soon. All the stuff, the great stuff that Keith Stewart does each and every week, breaking down the PGA Tour as well. Ton of great stuff lined up for this season. Grab a hold of the rocket ship to the moon. We'll catch you next week.
That's it. I'm your host, Keith Stewart. This is the TGL Show. Peace.